The Musharraf government came up with a new national housing policy in 2001. By this time, housing had become a crisis. So, if you look at the housing units available, there were around 19.3 million houses, 67% in rural areas and the rest in urban areas. Overall, the number of Pakka houses were only 21% and rest were Kacha and semi-Pakka houses. The backlog in 1998 was 4.3 million units, and each year there were an additional demand of 570,000 units, while only 300,000 units were being built. So each year, in addition to 4.3 million houses backlog, 270,000 units were added to this backlog. The main problem was financing, as the land prices were becoming very high. So without financing, there was no way a house can be built or bought. So this policy, the 2001 National Housing Policy, aimed to meet the shortfall of housing in the next 20 years, meaning that by 2021. It planned to increase the production of houses by 500,000 units annually, which was less than what was the annual demand, which was 570,000, but still close to that. So, to achieve this production of 500,000 units annually, government planned to do certain actions. The first was that there was a priority identification of land for housing. So areas around urban area will be identified which were good for housing, and then these areas will be acquired. There were the procedural bottlenecks which were there will be removed for this acquisition process. Then the land information systems will be developed. So there was this idea that Patwari and Fard and other things will be digitized so that it will be easier for people to buy and sell land and houses. Banks were encouraged to give mortgage loans. So mortgage loans are different from other loans in the sense that they are for a very long term. So the usual mortgage loan is from 20 years to 30 years in the West. So in Pakistan, banks were reluctant to give mortgage loans because they thought that it will be difficult to assess whether a person or a group can be given a loan for 20 or 30 years. Then government also asked the state bank to allow the major contractors or housing financial institutions to issue housing bonds. So by issuing housing bonds, these housing institutions will get the money and then buy land and build houses for the people. For the poor who will not be able to buy houses usually available, there was this provision of micro loans through CSOs, civil society organizations, and NGOs. Insurance companies, private provident fund holders, and EOBI were encouraged to invest in housing and construction sector. And then there was this idea that government will sell public land, and out of which a certain proportion will be set aside to subsidize for low-income housing. It was also planned that foreclosure laws will be introduced for the effective recovery of loans so that banks are able to give loans to the people for long term, that is 20 to 30 years. It was also decided that property tax on rented property will be decreased, and tenancy laws will be reviewed so that more people who have the land available can build houses and then give them for rent to other people. Some other initiatives were there, but as we can see now, most of these initiatives remain unimplemented, and policy was largely a failure. It doesn't increase in the result of more than 500,000 houses a year. Some Kachi abadis were regularized. State Bank came up with housing finance scheme, and the management of land records were digitized and gradually improved. But this project was also not completed under Musharraf. It happened much later on.